Humans cannot possibly pass without cheating. Their brains are too small for this. The Alien Academy's lecture hall was circular, its high ceiling hung with shimmering crystals that pulsed whenever a professor spoke. Rows of students from across the Galactic Federation sat with spines straight, tails flicking, wings folded, or tentacles neatly coiled. At the very center stood a single chair, occupied by a human girl named Mara, the only representative of Earth admitted to this prestigious school. She had spent years being told by fellow students and teachers alike that humans were slow, primitive, and better suited for manual labor than intellectual pursuits. Even among species that relied on scent trails or ultraviolet vision to communicate, insults had a universal flavor, and Mara had tasted enough of them. Today was the final examination for applied quantum warfare theory, a course notorious for driving even the brightest alien minds into nervous collapses. The test required live demonstration before the Council of Professors, 13 beings whose combined lifespans stretched into tens of thousands of years. Students were expected to harness simulation chambers, manipulate weapon arrays, and devise strategies to dismantle a hostile fleet scenario in real time. One by one, the alien candidates had failed. The reptilian Thakor had overheated his plasma equations, causing his simulation fleet to detonate itself before engaging the enemy. The crystalline Trisari candidate had tried to blind the holographic opponent with a light refractor, only to discover the software-modeled humans who wore polarized visors. The laughter in the audience shook the chamber. Mara sat quietly waiting. When her turn arrived, Professor Jrun, whose mandibles clicked whenever he mocked her, announced, "And now we watch the human attempt the impossible. For her kind, fire is still considered advanced technology." Laughter erupted again, echoing off the walls. Mara walked to the center, her heart pounding, but her expression steady. She slid into the command seat of the simulator, feeling the chair adjust reluctantly to her smaller frame. The holographic fleet blinked into existence above, a formation of enemy warships bristling with energy cannons. A timer started counting down from 10 minutes, the standard duration for the test. Mara's fingers brushed across the console, but she did not follow the usual method of overcomplicating the tactical map with flashy maneuvers. Instead, she closed her eyes and began recalling every Earth history book she had devoured. Humans, she knew, did not survive by brute strength. They thrived by finding shortcuts. She tapped commands rapidly, drawing confused murmurs from the professors. Instead of engaging the enemy fleet head-on, she redirected her simulation resources into creating false signatures, mock fleets appearing in multiple sectors. A wave of laughter came from the back rows. "She does not even know how to launch a strike," hissed one professor. But as seconds ticked by, the enemy fleet in the simulation scattered into chaos, chasing phantom targets. Mara then rerouted minimal power into a small strike group, ordering them through the most unlikely path, directly through the star's corona. The professors gasped. Alien students hissed and whispered that no ship could withstand such conditions. Yet the simulation adapted to human ingenuity. By reinforcing shields only during microbursts, Mara's fleet slid through the burning plasma. They emerged behind the enemy ships, unleashing concentrated fire that disabled command vessels before the fleet realized what had happened. The entire scenario collapsed into victory in under 7 minutes, the fastest time recorded in centuries. The hall went dead silent. Mara looked up at the projected results. She had not only passed, she had set a record that broke every alien attempt before her. Professor Jrun's mandibles clicked nervously. His crystal pulsed in frantic hues of orange, a color associated with fear. "This is impossible. Humans cannot." His voice faltered as the rest of the council stared at him. One by one, professors shifted uncomfortably, claws retracting, wings tightening, and tentacles curling inward. The silence became heavier, broken only by Mara's calm words. "Earth has been underestimated for too long. You gave me the same tools as everyone else. The difference is I use them like a human." Whispers rippled through the student body. Some alien cadets looked impressed, others unsettled. One large six-eyed predator species slithered out of the chamber entirely, muttering about dangerous unpredictability. Another professor rose abruptly, his skin flashing warning stripes. If even one human can think like this, what happens if Earth breeds thousands? Fear spread through the chamber like a contagion. The professors who once mocked Mara began gathering their belongings, unwilling to meet her gaze. A few fled entirely, retreating down the crystal-lit corridors as if her victory had summoned something monstrous. Mara sat in the chair, breathing steadily. She had not raised a weapon, had not threatened anyone, yet her success had driven ancient scholars to terror. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she allowed herself a small smile. The human way had always been adaptation, and today adaptation had turned into triumph. The remaining students stared at her differently now, some with curiosity, some with awe, some with clear unease. But none doubted her any longer. And Mara knew this was only the beginning. The professor's hurried retreat left the lecture hall buzzing with unsettled energy. Students whispered in their own tongues, some flashing colors across their scales, others rippling membranes in confusion. Mara remained in the center, still in the simulation chair, though the console had dimmed. The record stood undeniable, her time, her method, her victory. No one could erase it, though many wished they could. She stood slowly, aware of every eye following her. Her classmates shifted, leaving gaps as if proximity to her might invite danger. At the far end of the chamber, Headmaster Tovar, a massive avian being with iridescent feathers, finally rose. His voice was sharp yet quivering at the edges. Human student Mara, your performance exceeded even the most ambitious projections. The council will deliberate on whether your methods constitute a risk. He paused, eyes narrowing. Dismissed. The dismissal was meant to restore order, but instead the tension deepened. Mara walked out, refusing to lower her gaze. She could feel the weight of fear and respect tangled behind her. In the corridor, alien students moved aside like a tide parting for a dangerous vessel. She heard snippets. Too dangerous. Did you see how quickly she dismantled them? If humans can do this, a few voices carried admiration. Brilliant. Unexpectedly clever. A Trisari crystalline student even pulsed a respectful pattern in her direction. Mara pretended not to notice, though inside she held on to it. That night, her dormitory room felt smaller than usual. The academy's architecture had always been designed for larger species. Towering ceilings, reinforced walls, wide doorways. Her human-sized bunk seemed like a child's bed tucked into a cavern. She sat at her desk, staring at the glow panel. She thought of Earth, of her acceptance letter years ago that had called humans a curiosity worth study. She had come here desperate to prove herself and her people capable of more than manual labor in alien factories or entertainment in alien arenas. She had not expected that proving herself would terrify the faculty. A chime interrupted her thoughts. The door slid open to reveal a figure half hidden by a cloak. The Trisari student, shimmering softly in blues and greens, stepped inside. Mara, the crystalline voice hummed, vibrating through the air like a chime struck by wind. I am Tiskin. I wish to say, your strategy today was extraordinary. Mara blinked, wary of hidden motives. Thank you, she said cautiously. But extraordinary usually doesn't make friends around here. Tiskin pulsed briefly in acknowledgement. True. Yet extraordinary shapes the course of history. You must be careful. Professors will not merely retreat, they will plan. Mara frowned. Plan what? To contain you. Perhaps Tiskin's light dimmed, but not all are against you. Some of us saw not danger, but possibility. Mara leaned forward. Possibility of what? Tiskin tilted its crystalline form. Change. The word hung heavy. For the next week, Mara found herself watched constantly. Professors observed her during meals, in the training yard, even in study halls. The other students whispered less openly but stared with sharper eyes. Rumors grew that humans were secretly developing weapons on their homeworld, that Mara's test had been an intentional display of warlike cunning, that the academy would soon restrict her access to advanced courses. Instructors became harsher. Assignments that once required group work now forced Mara into isolation. Projects that should have lasted days were compressed into hours, as if to test her limits or push her toward failure. Yet Mara adapted. Humans had always learned under pressure. She stayed up late, solving equations on scrap paper, hacking together devices from discarded components, using memory tricks she had honed since childhood. She turned every impossible task into something completed just within the deadline. Instead of breaking, she sharpened. Still, the tension rose. One afternoon during Combat Simulation 3B, a professor altered her scenario mid-test. Instead of a balanced fleet engagement, Mara faced an enemy force 3 times the expected size, with reinforcements dropping in at random intervals. The audience murmured in shock, realizing the unfairness, but the professor remained silent. Mara studied the chaotic display. Instead of panicking, she drew on Earth's long history of asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run strikes. She scattered her forces, lured the enemy into pursuing bait, then struck their supply lines. The simulation dragged on longer than usual, and sweat beaded across her forehead. But in the end, her fleet remained functional, while the enemies collapsed into disarray. Silence followed again. This time, no professor congratulated her. Instead, Headmaster Tovar stood and declared, "Enough. Human strategies are disruptive. We must assess the broader implications." Mara understood the code in his words. They feared her, feared humans, feared the possibility of losing control over a species they had deemed lesser. That evening, her door chimed again. This time it was not Tiskin, but 3 others, a reptilian Thukor, a feline striped Genari, and a small insectoid Kef with multifaceted eyes. They stood awkwardly in her doorway. The Thukor spoke first, voice gravelly. "We saw what they did. They tried to crush you." The Genari flicked her striped tail. "And you crushed them instead." The insectoid clicked softly. "We would like to learn from you." Mara raised her brows. "Learn from me?" "Why?" The Thukor shifted. "Because the Academy teaches obedience." "You showed something else." "Freedom," Mara hesitated. She had expected suspicion, even hostility. Yet here were students from species that had mocked her before, now seeking her out. She let them in. They sat cross-legged, coiled, or folded on the floor while she explained her thought process, her reliance on unpredictability, her way of seeing the opportunity where others saw limits. They listened, asked questions, debated. Hours passed. By the time they left, Mara realized she had done something the professors had not anticipated. She had started building alliances. The next days, more students came quietly. Not all, but enough. A ripple began, subtle but growing, as whispers spread about the human way. The professors noticed. They grew more agitated, more divided. Some argued humans should be expelled at once, others demanded stricter monitoring, while a few surprisingly suggested that perhaps the academy itself needed to evolve. But the tide was shifting beyond their control. The moment that confirmed it came during a cross-academy debate. Mara was forced to defend her methods before hundreds of students and staff. Professor Jrun himself confronted her, mandibles clicking furiously. "Your species is reckless. You rely on deception, chaos, and risk. Such practices will destabilize the galaxy." Mara stood calmly, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Deception, chaos, and risk are survival. You call them dangerous. I call them life. Humans survived on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned not to fear the impossible, but to turn it into opportunity. If that destabilizes your galaxy, maybe your galaxy needs it." Gasps erupted. Some professors glared with outright hostility. Yet in the audience, dozens of students leaned forward, eyes shining. A seed had been planted. Mara could feel it taking root, and she knew the final exam had been only the beginning. The real test had just begun. The whispers grew into murmurs, the murmurs into open discussions, and soon the entire academy buzzed with debates about the human in their midst. Mara found herself walking through corridors where alien students once jeered, now pausing to greet her or ask quiet questions about her strategies. Professors frowned at this growing influence, convening in hidden chambers to discuss sanctions. But the tide of curiosity was unstoppable. The spark had caught. One morning, Mara was summoned to the Great Hall. Its towering spires shimmered with luminous crystals, a place reserved for only the most critical announcements. Hundreds of students filled the amphitheater, every species present, from the winged Ayari to the massive Thakor. The council of professors lined the elevated dais, their expressions tense, feathers ruffled, carapaces twitching, gales flashing muted alarm colors. Headmaster Tovar spread his wings and spoke. Students of the Galactic Academy, we face a troubling crisis. A human has shown methods that destabilize centuries of learning. Her tactics inspire rebellion against order. Today, we decide whether humanity deserves a place among us or whether they must be expelled permanently. A collective gasp swept the hall. Expulsion was rare, usually reserved for crimes of violence or treason. Mara stepped forward, heart pounding but face calm. You claim my methods destabilize your academy. Humanity must be contained. Mara met his gaze steadily. You speak of billions as if they're a threat. But you forget, billions of humans already survived the impossible. We fought famine, storms, predators, and each other, and we learned. That's what makes us dangerous to you. We don't collapse when pressed. We adapt. The hall shifted with restless energy. Students leaned in, professors exchanged uneasy glances. Then, without warning, the lights dimmed and the hall's central hollow projector activated. A simulation unfolded above them, showing a scenario too familiar. A galactic war. Alien fleets clashed with human vessels near Earth's orbit. The simulation depicted humans falling in battle. At first, but then came adaptations, makeshift weapons, unpredictable maneuvers, alliances formed in desperation. The tide shifted until alien forces scattered in defeat. Gasps echoed as the simulation ended with a single line pulsing across the display. Human potential unbounded. Mara realized with a jolt that she hadn't triggered it. Someone else had. From the crowd, Tiskin pulsed brightly, stepping forward with a chorus of supportive students behind. We uploaded the simulation, the crystalline voice resonated. Because the truth is clear. Humanity's strength lies not in numbers or technology alone, but in creativity, resilience, and unpredictability. Qualities we need if the galaxy is to thrive. The professors recoiled as more students joined, speaking in different tongues but sharing the same message. They wanted to learn from the human, not fear her. Mara turned slowly to face the council. You asked whether humanity deserves a place here, but the truth is, your academy needs humanity. You've built a system that values conformity. Humans bring something else. The courage to fail, to try again, to find paths you didn't even see. That's not a threat, it's survival. The hall erupted. Students, did you like today's story? Then catch our posts at 3 p.m. Eastern Time daily. Unfold more intergalactic stories with Professor Space.